Yo, hey everybody, what is going on? This is episode 12 of Professional American. I'm your host, Christoph Ambrosch, in case you've forgotten or you're just tuning in. It's been a while. It has been a minute. Things have been weird this year, and weird in a good way. And we'll go over a little bit of everything today. So why not here? So this episode is going to be a bit of again, a little bit of a mix-up, and maybe this will become more of a variety show. Never know. Thoughts would be welcomed. You can send them in. So we're going to do a little bit of catch-up here. We're going to go over some recent news, some recommended podcasts that's going to be at the end here, and also going to talk about some faith. So let's start up with a catch-up. I believe the last time I recorded an episode, I'm going to have to pull it up here because... man, it's just been a while. I believe it was March. It was either February or March. Might have been February. Real time. This is another episode of Christoph looking up stuff on the internet while you listen. Let's see here. Was February 27th. So yeah, it has been. it's been a minute. So, what has happened since February? Let's see. We did our annual pilgrimage to the North Carolina-Tennessee border for Wookiees in the Woods. So that was then. We did that in April. We started attending a home church in April as well, and attending men's Bible study for myself and women's Bible study for Crystal, and I'll go over that a little bit more in the faith section of today's episode. So we started doing that. Let's see here. That was April. May. I can just tell you, this has been quite an uneventful year. I built a fence. How about that? I built a fence. It was something we had been planning for a while in our backyard. We kind of wanted to break up. So our whole property is just a hair under an acre, and we wanted to divvy up part of the backyard so that we could set up it. We wanted something specifically for the dog to be able to just be let out, that we didn't have to really worry about him. We also want to be able to let the chickens out and not worry about them going on into our neighbor's yard. Our one neighbor who doesn't mind the chickens coming over, he does spray liberal amounts of Roundup. And we know while it may not immediately kill a chicken, it's definitely not going to help. But even if it doesn't kill them, it will get put into their eggs, and then we'll consume it, and it's just no bueno. So we wanted to have that. On top of it, we want to be able to plant some stuff on the outside of the fence and on the inside of the fence, and this would be it's going to turn into essentially a secondary garden. I'm very thankful that my dad was able to communicate with a gentleman up by him that has a mill, and was able to get some larch, which is it's the hardest of the softwoods. It's a deciduous coniferous tree. So it's a cone-bearing tree that changes color and drops its needles every year. It's a very unique tree. It's a naturally rot-resistant wood, which is the reason why we went with that. I was originally going to do split rail fence, but the cost was astronomical for me to do it myself. So just ended up going with that. I saved. I did the math. We saved over $1,000 going with this post and rail, and not split rail. Just screwing 3 boards onto vertical posts, so 4x4s, and what are they? 1x6s, true 1x6x10s. It worked out really well. So happy about that. It was a bit of a struggle at first. Our yard has it must be made up of a lot of very cheap fill when they kind of built the house and made the property the way they did. Also, there was an above ground pool at one point. I forget which owner had it. I don't think it was the previous owner. I think it was 2 owners ago. And that got kind of just bulldozed, and they didn't fully remove everything. So as I would be digging the hole, I would just hit random chunks of cement, not even rocks, just full-on cement. And I'm very thankful that one of my customers lent me their post hole digger, which I one of the gas powered ones, an auger. I'm very thankful for that. My plan was to do it all by hand, and I'm very thankful that I didn't, because I still had to do a lot of it by hand, but at least I could work some of the cement and rocks free with the pry bar and post hole digger, and then I would just use the auger to finish it up. So it worked out very well. Carrie and I finished up hunting season. We finished up turkey. We didn't get anything this year, so that was also in May. We wrapped that up. We are both actually applied now for this year too, so we're looking forward to starting up hunting this year. Beginning with archery, and then squirrel, and then fall turkey, then fall deer, rifle season for her. It's going to be her first deer season, so looking forward to that. So, but yep, no turkey, but we had a very, very good experience. We saw a bear twice, 2 separate days. It was a very close encounter with a bear, which I've never had one ever prior to this year or this past year. So it was a good time. Glad we got to experience that together. Let's see here. What else did we? I'm trying to look through my social media to see if there was anything that I missed that I might have documented. Got the boat out again for the first time in 2 years. That's been sitting on the back burner for a while. A little 14-foot aluminum fishing boat that belonged to Crystal's dad, and it's kind of been sitting. The last 2 years have been a little hectic, so this year we made time, and we need to make more time to get it out. When it's a little cooler, when it gets too hot, it's just unbearable sometimes, but we need it just to be a tad cooler. Both girls went to 2 camps. They each had 2 camps, summer camps. They went to, Chloe went to a horse camp up back where I grew up. She's been going to that one for a few years now, so she was happy to go again. So she went to that. Each kid we tried to divvy up with my parents. They at least get a week each with my parents each summer. It's a relief to everybody. We get to live a life without one kid for a week. The kids get to be separated, so it's a break for everybody, and we're not putting both of my kids on my parents for a full week. That's just a ton of stress that nobody really wants to deal with, and I don't blame anybody. So Chloe went first. She got her pony camp done. She got to spend some time with my parents. Then we picked her up and dropped Carrie off. She went to an arts and music camp that she's been going to for a few years now, which actually is run by my former one of my former violin teachers. So from high school. So it's awesome that she's gotten to experience that. And then Chloe got to do her second camp, was all the way out in Pittsburgh. Now, my boom is making a little noise here. For those who don't know, Pittsburgh from where I'm at is about 5 hours, depending on which way you go. So if you take the non-tollway, it's 5.5 hours. If you take the tollway, it's about 4.5 hours. So it's not close. I think Pennsylvania end to end is about 6 hours to drive, and if you want to do top to bottom, it's about, if I had to guess, almost 5, depending on how you want to do it. So Pennsylvania is a pretty big state. So drove her out there. This was also a horse camp. A little bit of a difference, though. This camp was a Christian-based camp, which we stumbled upon, and very thankful that we did. And Chloe, didn't care. She just wanted to go be with horses, and she got to. It was, I think, 6 full days, I believe, including drop off and pickup. And she had a great time. She had a really great time. She's already looking forward to going back next year. She made some good friends. She got all phone numbers so she can chat with those friends while she's not at camp. But they, they did a good job dealing with horses and still talking about the Word of God, which was fantastic. So other than the driving out there, and back and out there and back, it was great. It was great. I'm really happy she got to experience that. And then Carrie got a second summer camp, which this is the first year they've gotten 2 summer camps. But she actually got to go to a camp that I went to when I was a kid. And I think the last time I had been there, I might have been 14-ish. I might have been 14 years old, roughly. And that's Spruce Lake up in the Poconos, up in I think it's Canadensis is where it's at. And she had a great time. That was a week long there too, and it was cool. We pulled in there, and I'm like, wow, this looks exactly the way I remember it 22 years ago. So that was really good. It's a nice Christian camp, both non-denominational camps that. It's good to have kids practice some fellowship with like-minded youth and still learn about the Word of God while having a good time in the outdoors. So there was that. Let's see here. Business, as far as the business side of the house, business has been real slow for me. It picks up in the springtime, which I'm used to, but then with the economy going the way it currently is and has been going, kind of fell right flat on its face, and didn't have a lot of business for most of June and really any of July. Beginning of August here, things are starting to pick back up, which I'm very thankful for. And so we'll see how that plays out, but not like I'm quitting anytime soon, but I have other things to keep me busy. And I think that kind of brings me back up to current era, up to today. So I think that's a good catch up. Everyone's doing fine here. Everyone in the house is doing good. Health is good. The kids, how could I forget? The big announcement is that Carrie is going to be homeschooled. She is officially homeschooled. The paperwork's already been delivered, and we kind of already started. So Carrie's going to be homeschooled, which is going to help a ton with a lot of things. We really want to phase both kids out of the public school. And it started with Carrie, and we're waiting for Chloe to get on board. She's the only one that's kind of digging the heels in a little bit. And ultimately, yes, as parents, we have the say in what our kids do. But at the age of 12, anyone who's listening to this more than likely has been 12 at one point, understands that there is a fine line that you have to tread as far as digging your feet in as a parent and saying, nope, this is what's going to happen, and also mildly respecting your kid's feelings and kind of reading the room. So let's just put it this way: this is awkward. Like this is weird because of the two of between me and Crystal, I'm probably the one that's you would think would be less wanting homeschooling, but in this instance, it's actually the other way around. If it was up to me, I would have sent in Chloe's paperwork with it too, because I've had it with public schools. I've had it with the school district, really. There are worse out there, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how long it'll take Chloe seeing Carrie not waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to school while she does, and getting to go do things that are not what you would consider a traditional school day and having it count for school. So we'll see how long it takes before she changes her mind. Who knows? But other than that, I think that's really the catch-up. Everyone's doing fine. Chloe's going to be starting up school here shortly. She is also trying out for volleyball this week, so we'll see how that goes. And softball starts up for Carrie soon, so things are getting busy again. And we'll see how things go into the fall time. But other than that, we are just... I got to start drilling archery again so that I can be prepared for archery season for deer. And hopefully a little bit better harvest this year compared to last year's harvest, which was just some squirrels. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. And I guess that's really all about that. So let's get into some recent news, shall we? Let's take it down the non-controversial rabbit hole here. Screw it. Let's... I'm going to start with some gun control stuff. If you've listened to the show before, or if you know me for more than 5 seconds, you understand that I'm a pretty big advocate for gun safety, but also gun education as well. I like my firearms, which is awkward because growing up, I didn't grow up in a gun house. I didn't go hunting before I graduated high school. This was all something that I took up once I was in the military and after, and like while I was in college and whatnot. And it's definitely unique. It's not one of those things, like I've known people that's how they grew up. They grew up hunting with their dads, their grandparents. They shot guns with all of them, and a little envious of that, but that's fine. I get to now, I can't change the past. I can change the future, and that's why I'm taking the opportunity to educate my kids on it, take Carrie hunting with me, and hopefully it can become something in the future for her kids and whatnot. So if, in case you've been living under a rock, H.R. 1808, which is a House resolution of it's the Assault Weapons Ban of 2022. It was introduced by Representative Cicilline from Rhode Island, and look, I don't want to spend all my time on this, but it's a garbage bill, and it passed the House, of course, with 2 Republicans, one from this state of Pennsylvania, voting in favor of it, and it's garbage. It's absolutely garbage. You read the whole thing, it's absolutely garbage, and I can have a link in the show notes for you to read the text of the bill. I strongly urge you to do that. The Senate, it got passed to the Senate, and the Senate actually didn't vote on it. I think they are in recess as of Monday. They went in recess, and I think they come back in September. So they're in recess for the rest of the month, but it will more than likely be brought back up in September. I would be shocked if it wasn't the first thing they bring up. And I'll have links to finding out who your senator is as well, too. I really recommend that you contact your senator and let them know how you feel about this. I mean, I can't tell you what to do, but this is some of the most nonsensical, illogical wording as far as trying to curb gun violence, quote unquote, in the United States. It's terrible. It would make the pistol that I just purchased this week, it would make that illegal. What did I purchase this week? I purchased a Sig Sauer P322. Now, for those who aren't firearm nuts, it is a .22 caliber pistol. Now, I understand why would I spend the money on a .22 caliber pistol. Well, it's actually, the goal of that is to be a training aid for Carrie, so that as she gets older, 9mm can be a little, still a little snappy for her, especially that she hasn't, grown up with pistols. So this is more as an introductory pistol for her to learn the basics and the fundamentals. This way she's not a 38-year-old woman trying to learn how to conceal carry with a 9mm, like Crystal. So this is a training aid. Also, it's going to be a fun pistol for me to shoot as well too. But anyone who knows .22s, you'd say, why would a .22 caliber pistol be illegal under this bill? Well, actually, let me go right to the text of the bill here. So, a semi-automatic pistol that, number one, has an ammunition feeding device that is not a fixed ammunition feeding device, so a removable magazine, which every semi-automatic pistol does, and has one of the following: a threaded barrel, a second pistol grip, a barrel shroud, the capacity to accept a detachable ammunition feeding device at some location outside of the pistol grip, a semi-automatic version of an automatic firearm, a manufactured weight of 50 ounces or more when unloaded, a buffer tube, stabilizing brace, or similar component that protrudes horizontally behind the pistol grip and is designed or redesigned to allow or facilitate a firearm to be fired from the shoulder. Now, most of this language here is designed to go after AR-style pistols. For those who think guns have all of these rights, that they have more rights than women, and they think that there's loopholes and you can just get whatever you want all willy-nilly, there are let me tell you, there are more rules than you know what to do with. And it truly is death by 1,000 paper cuts when it comes to ban weapons. It really is. First of all, I'd have to pull it up, but let's use the AR platform, which is really what they're designing, what they're trying to allude that this is what they want to ban. Okay, everyone can Google what an AR-15 looks like. So let's just use and I will call that the AR platform, the Armalite rifle platform. Since it is a very modular platform, you can do so many things with it. There are different barrel lengths. You can change that out. There are different stocks. You can change that out. Different pistol grips. You can change that out. Uppers, lowers. So there's a different combinations you can do. There are definitions as to what is a rifle legally within the whole country. There's a definition of what a rifle is, a definition of a pistol, a definition of a shotgun. Those are the three categories, main categories. A rifle is a rifle must have must have a shoulder stock. It must have a rifled barrel, so the inside of the barrel has rifling, which helps with the accuracy of a projectile. And it has to be over a certain length barrel. And there's also an overall length from stock to barrel tip as well. If that barrel length is under a certain length, it becomes either a short-barreled rifle or it can become a pistol. It depends on how you want to classify it. So a lot of this wording here has to deal with AR-style pistols. So that's where I understand it's where a lot of the logic here is how they made that. However, going back to number one here, a threaded barrel. Well, the pistol I just bought, which is legitimately a pistol, has a threaded barrel. And there are many pistols that you can buy with threaded barrels. You can add compensators on the end of them. You can add muzzle brakes. You can add suppressors. Depends on what you want to do. That's the point of having threads. So this has threads. This has a threaded barrel. And it has an ammunition feeding device that is not fixed, and so a removable magazine. Also, it has let's see, back up here 1 second here, or go down here. So a semi-automatic pistol with a fixed ammunition feeding device that has a capacity to accept more than 15 rounds. This has a 20-round magazine. So it checks 3 of the boxes. It has a removable magazine, it has a threaded barrel, and it has a 20-round magazine. So, under this legislation, that pistol, which is a phenomenal training aid for younger people, for older people, that want to get into pistols, it's a great training aid. Illegal. You would not be able to buy it unless you're law enforcement or military. Law enforcement would be able to still purchase all of the things in this bill. So it seems it's extremely illogical, and I urge you to read the text. I urge you to look up some of the things that are on the exemption list, some of the things that are on the banned list. They have a lot listed by name. The one that's getting the most attention is the Ruger Mini 14, which shoots a .223 or .556 caliber bullet, just like the AR platform. It's semi-automatic, which, for those who don't know, semi-automatic means you load a round into the chamber, you press the trigger, it will fire that round, eject it, and load a new one in all in one motion. So for every time you pull the trigger, it will do that. It will not do more than that. If you pull and hold the trigger and hold it, it's not going to fire anymore. That is the function of semi-automatic. So the Mini 14 is semi-automatic, fires the same round as an AR-15, but most of them come with wood stocks, and it's a good looking. It's usually they're pretty cheap. I've heard that they're not as accurate, but whatever. That's legal. But if you get the tactical version of it, which has plastic stock, that's illegal. But the barrel and the actual internals are identical. So I know Representative Massey, I believe, who was made. That's one of the ones he brought up, and it's this is all absurd. I'm not going to spend too much more time on it, but I do. If you have questions about it, I will gladly answer them. So reach out to me if you want to talk about it. Just please read it. Please contact your senators and let them know that this cannot pass. This cannot pass. And it is the first. Look, nowhere in the bill does it say they're going to take guns. Yes, they also say in there that if you currently own any of these things, you'll be grandfathered in. However, it then makes it extremely difficult. If I wanted to sell one of my ARs or that pistol, if I wanted to sell it, it would make it either extremely difficult or illegal to do so. This is all a slippery slope. What I've seen in the past, excuse me, I'm not going to say that this is going to happen, but I've seen other bills in the past that, it becomes law. Later down the road, another bill gets introduced, and in that bill, there will be language that says, take this U.S. code and amend, and it's an amendment, and it'll say this U.S. code, change paragraph A, line 1, take the word and out and put or. That happens all the time. In fact, it might even happen in this. I think it does happen because there are some federal laws on the books. I'd have to. Oh yeah, right here. Now, so Section 501A, 1 of Title 1 of the Omnibus Crime Control and Safe Streets Act of 1968 is amended by adding at the end of the following: compensation for surrendered semi-automatic assault weapons and large-capacity ammunition feeding devices, as those terms are defined in Section 921. Excuse me, my voice is off today. Of Title 18 U.S. Code under buyback programs for semi-automatic weapons and large-capacity ammunition feeding devices. So, if this bill becomes law, this little Section 6 here, Section 6 would go back and amend a law from 1968. So, what would stop this bill from passing in 5 years, 2 years down the road, them just amending this law to say like, oh, okay, now we're going to take them, or something. I'm being extreme, but something, and it's nickel and diming. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts, and that's all I have to say about that. Educate yourself, people. Moving on. This is this one might ruffle some feathers here, and it's about the FBI raid at Mar-a-Lago that just happened here on August 8th. That was Monday. Let's start with a few things here. I'm going to start right up front. I don't care about this. This is dumb news. This is truly just news to rally up a base. Is it bad? Yeah, the FBI shouldn't have raided Trump's personal house. There was probably no precedent to do so. But on the other hand, since when does the FBI need a precedent to do anything anymore? You have people who got arrested for things on January 6th. They had their houses raided by the FBI, locked away, and thrown the key away. And where's he at? Where's the true outrage over that? So do you think the people sitting in jail because they went into the Capitol on January 6th, not that they did anything, like they didn't destroy anything. There are people that are in jail just for walking inside. Do you think those people care that Trump's personal residence got raided by the FBI? No, they don't. And honestly, I'm tired of the Trump worship. I voted for him. If he were to become the nominee in the general election, I would probably vote for him again. But this Trump praise and worship it's out of hand, and it's It's disgusting. He's not your savior. He's not your savior. He's not going to come and make everything all right. He's not your savior. There's a lot of other things you can put your faith into, which will be a good segue into the next section. But this is ridiculous. The guy is not a good guy. He had some pretty good policies that came down through his presidency, which I liked. But he's not a good guy. And if he did something wrong, he needs to be punished for it. Obviously the FBI, they have rules that they need to follow. And if they're breaking the rules, if they're making up the rules as they go, that's a problem. But anymore, I was just saying this last night, that anymore, some of these systems are just so broken, like the education system. The education system is so broken anymore, the public education system, that it really cannot be fixed. It has to be just thrown away. It has to be thrown away, start over, or do it yourself. I think the administrative side of healthcare is also so broken that it needs to be thrown away. I don't know if the actual clinical part is broken. I think a lot of the issues with the clinical part of healthcare is what it is because of the administrative side, the people who make the rules. So, and it comes down to things like the ATF, the Bureau for Alcohol and Tobacco and Firearms. They're beyond corrupt and broken. They need to go away. Department of Education needs to go away. I would say the Department of Health needs to go away as well, if it was up to me. And the FBI, while I understand the roles of the FBI and the CIA, the FBI, they need a serious purge at this point. And unfortunately, a lot of these issues that are, man, this is an overused word, but it is systemic. And the issues, the same thing with the military right now, too, that you're seeing. These organizations are made up of members of society. Duh, we live in a population, we live in society. So when all these cultural things have penetrated society, they're obviously going to penetrate these organizations. When you have schools teaching kids that girls can be boys and boys can be girls, and that we should judge people on the color of their skin, because if you're white, you're an oppressor. If you're teaching kids that, eventually that is going to trickle up into these organizations, because they pull from society. They're members of society, so it's going to infiltrate that. And as a result, you have people who like to abuse power, and it's here we are. But I think if you're someone who is, as they say, all aboard the Trump train, I think you need to get over yourself and realize that he is an extremely flawed human that is not our savior, and he'll be just fine. He's going to be just fine. If you think he's going to get locked up in jail, you're wrong. Don't get fired up over this FBI raid. It's a nothing burger, and I truly feel they want a couple things. I think they want to rally up the base. It's the whole poking with a stick to the people who love Donald Trump, saying, go ahead, do something. They want another January 6th. Go ahead. They're poking, saying, do something. We're messing with your man. Do something. I think that's one. I think there's a little bit of truth in that. I think there's a little bit of truth in the fact that they want Trump to run again. And if he runs, like I've said for a while, he manages to suck the oxygen out of any room he walks into, good or bad. And if he runs for president in 2024, it's going to suck the oxygen out of the room. Any candidate who might actually be a legitimately good candidate that has potential to beat Biden, that person's going to be a nobody, because everyone's going to focus on Trump. So I think they want that, and I don't. I could live my life if Trump does not run again. Again, I'll say that if he becomes the nominee, I'll vote for him. But I would rather not go through this again. If we could avoid that, that'd be great. I understand things have gotten crazy. If we could try to maybe, like, on all sides, maybe agree, like, hey, maybe can we take the crazy train down? Like, I don't know, 20 pegs? Can we just relax here? That would be great. It would be fantastic. Because honestly, I don't think a lot of people are going to like where this crazy train ends up. If we keep going down the road that we're going, which we are, we're going to. Man, I need to oil this. Which we are. We're going to keep going down there because it's a pendulum. It's going to swing. And unfortunately, when the pendulum goes to when it goes to a height, it has to swing back. And sometimes when it swings back, it goes up higher than before. So I don't think, if you are somebody who leans left, if you're a Democrat, and if you're for all these leftist policies, I don't think you're going to like when the pendulum finally swings back, because it ultimately is going to. And same thing I'd say to anyone who is conservative or Republican. Right now we're seeing the pendulum going up right now, and like I said, it will swing back. And if we go too far and when it swings back, well, guess what? It's going to swing back again. Everyone's going to have their day in the sun. And that's all I have to say about that. Let me take a sip here. This is a non-sponsored product placement here of my Jocko Go. I discovered these. Not that I'm the first to discover them, but I finally had the opportunity to grab these, and they are fantastic. I guess, for lack of a better term, they are an energy drink, but I hesitate to call them that because I don't get the jitters like I have with other energy drinks. I don't get the crash. They taste phenomenal. There's great flavors. My favorite happens to be what I think it's called the Tropic Thunder. It's pineapple coconut, so it tastes like a pina colada, and it's really good. Also, it is keto friendly. It only has 10 calories. It's sugar free. Let's see here. It has amino acids in it. A bunch of natural stuff that I can't pronounce. There's vitamins, electrolytes, and nootropics all in it. It's very good. I do highly recommend it. You can buy them online, or you can also get them at any Wawa store, which is really cool. Also, because we have tons of Wawas here. It's always nice to be able that if I happen to want to need a pick me up, I can just go right in there and grab one if they have one in stock. But they're good. I do recommend them, especially if you are just looking for a little pick me up with no crash, and there's no garbage. Anyone who knows me at this point knows that if I'm recommending something, there's no crap in it that's going to really affect your health. This is just a good pick me up. And this one, because somebody drank the one I was supposed to have. This one is the passion fruit mango, which is very good too. It's actually Crystal's favorite. So, and Carrie likes it too. But let me just take one more sip here before we get into the next bulk of the podcast. Alrighty, let's dive into something a little less controversial. Faith. Let's talk about that, shall we? So, Crystal and I both grew up Catholic. Grew up Christian and believing that Jesus is Lord and Savior, and grew up Catholic, going to Catholic church. Both of us went through baptism, communion, confirmation, and we were both married. We were married in a Catholic church. So and she actually went to Catholic school for a little bit as well. So she has one up on me there. My parents were Catholic. Her mom was Catholic. So it's something that we spent a bulk of our life in. This year, things have changed a little bit. That's a lie. It's quite a bit. So what changed? Well, not our faith. We still, we never stopped believing in God. We never stopped believing in Jesus. However, our perspective has definitely changed, I would say. And maybe this is something I have to have a sit down with her on, maybe have her on the podcast to discuss this. I don't know if she wants to or not. But our perspective has changed quite a bit. I don't want to say that we lost our way. There were definitely some things that just kind of got pushed to the back burner. And I think this is very common for a lot of people. I think a lot of people just get all wrapped up in day-to-day life, in society, in culture, and religion takes a back burner. I know what I sold myself on was, well, I don't, God says that we, no sin too big, no sin too small. We just ask for forgiveness. I don't need to go to church in order to worship him, all that stuff. That's what I used to, and those are all true, but that's what I told myself. I don't need to go to church in order to be a Christian. And thankfully for us, a house came for sale on the end of our street, and wonderful couple, wonderful family bought it and introduced themselves to us. And then in April, Andrew, the husband, started saying, "Hey, we have a home church, and we do Bible study. We have a men's Bible study if you want to come check that out." And I genuinely did. I'm like, "Oh yeah, I definitely do." And I feel like, and I should ask him this. I feel like I was blowing him off, but I didn't mean to do it on purpose, because every time something came up, there was always something else that I was involved in. And I'm like, I already have these plans, so I can't come, next time. Let me know next time. And so finally, I had enough guilt on my mind that I'm like, no, the next time he tells me, I am there. So we went to the home church, started going to men's Bible study, and it is non-denominational. It is just the Word. And I will say it has absolutely changed our lives. I mean, our belief hasn't changed. We still believe in God, still call ourselves Christians. It's still what we grew up believing. It's just there's context, and what I would say is, and I've said this before to some other people, that I feel going to church, not even just Catholics, all denominational churches, they are just going through motions. This is what we do because this is what I did growing up. This is what my parents did. This is what they're, it's just going through the motions. In Catholics, it's a lot of stand up, sit down, kneel, sit down, stand up, kneel, and, say the Our Father, have some communion wafers, shake hands, and leave. Let's go watch football. That's the tradition. And while I understand what the purpose of church is, I feel that meaning has really been lost by a lot of people over the years, and churches themselves. So going to the home church, which rotates between several houses within the church, it has provided us with a level of fellowship that we've never encountered before. And it's so refreshing. Absolutely, it has been so refreshing. It also helps that the one house is right down the street that we just walked to. That helps a lot. And men's Bible study, the same thing. That actually, I think I've gotten more out of men's Bible study than anything else. Sitting down, and it depends on the week, but I think we average probably around, between 5 to 10 men just sitting around. We're in the book of John right now, and we focus. Sometimes, we've had days nights, I should say, that we will spend 4 hours on one verse. And while that may seem boring, trust me, it is not. There's a lot of substance that goes on there. And it's given me a new outlook on a lot of things, and I'm very thankful for that. And I definitely have seen a change in myself. I've seen a change in my own household. I've seen. I'm hoping the kids see the change, especially between Crystal and I, and even with them. And I pray that moving forward, it only gets even better. And it's been great. So I don't want to go down too much of a rant on this, but it's been fantastic. So for anyone that follows my social media and has seen, whether it's my business or my personal stuff, and you've seen the change, it's not because, I don't even know what it could not be. It truly is. I've been awakened. The things that were inside me this entire time they've just gotten. It's like a volcano. It's at the surface now. It's no longer deep in. It's on the surface, and it's still in deep as well. But I'm not perfect, far from it. But things are much, much better, and it is definitely not that things were terrible in the house before, and not that they're perfect now, but things are much better now because of these changes that we've made. And simple things around the house, simple things like just as soon as I wake up, the first thing I do is get on my knees and thank God for restoring the breath in my lungs that I may live another day in his beautiful creation. Something as simple as just praying over every meal that I eat, which is one or two a day, but still thanking him for the food that he's provided, praying that it nourishes my body, and at the end of the day, praying before I get in bed to go to sleep, thanking him for the fatigue at the end of the day, for the rest I'm about to have. And if it's his will, maybe I'll have another day tomorrow, because tomorrow is not promised. So it's spending daily spending time inside the Bible. It's been very, very refreshing. I've learned a lot. Crystal and I both have learned a lot, and it's been refreshing to carry that into our day-to-day lives, and watching those changes happen, even with the kids. So it's been great. 10 out of 10 would recommend. And speaking of recommendations, let's get in some podcasts that I recommend. So everyone who knows me knows that I'm a big podcast guy. It's probably, most of my day is spent listening to podcasts. It's how I get my news. It's how I get my entertainment for the most part. And it's how I learn as well, too. I listen to some informational podcasts that I've learned quite a bit on. And I've picked 3 here. And honestly, I don't know if I've weeded out a lot lately. I'm like, now these ones are just, I'm not enjoying them like I used to. So I've weeded a bunch out. But I'm going to give you 3. And trust me, there are so many more that I wish I could just tell you my whole list. But these 3, I think, are... If you could hand me everyone's phone and I had to put 3 podcasts other than my own onto it, I would recommend these 3. And these are in no particular order. So we're going to start with the Matt Walsh. The Matt Walsh Show. It's from the Daily Wire, so it's conservative leaning, so obviously they're conservative. But the Matt Walsh Show is fantastic. One, his sense of humor is right up my alley. It's like, I've heard him say things, and Crystal said to me, "Oh, I wonder where this is exactly what you would say." So it's right up my alley. So I like his dry sense of humor, his dry wit. He happens to be Catholic as well. He doesn't inject too much of his Catholicism into it, but he is grounded in Christianity. And I like that. He is conservative. He spends more time looking at cultural issues, not necessarily the politics side, but I mean, obviously it's a political show, so politics is going to enter into it, but he spends more time on culture, which I appreciate. I do recommend his show highly, especially the video show. I don't always get a chance to watch the video end of it, but on the times that I do, sometimes it's more visually appealing than listening. So next up, and actually anything from the Daily Wire, I like. I enjoy all things from Daily Wire, but the Matt Walsh show specifically, if I had to pick one, that would be it. So I do get a little bit of news from him, but for the most part, cultural side of it is fantastic. Next up is the Meat Eater podcast. Meat Eater is the brainchild of Steven Rinella. So there's a show on Netflix, which is the same name, Meat Eater. I strongly recommend it, even if you are not a hunter, to watch that show on Netflix, especially if you're not a hunter, to watch that show on Netflix. It's very, very, very good. But the podcast is a little bit more in depth. They can go over a wide variety of topics. They talk about land conservation. They talk about hunting, obviously, fishing, cooking, you name it. Very rarely will politics come up unless it has to do, a specific policy has to come up regarding any one of their pillars that they talk about. So it's a great show. They have some great guests on. They've had meat scientists. They've had historians like the Lewis and Clark expedition. They had someone who was an expert on that. They now have a new trivia show, which is really entertaining and really good. So it's an all-around great show to listen to. It's not all serious. There's a lot of comedy mixed into it. You know, it's what you would expect from a bunch of guys, and they have a couple gals as well that would sit around, you know, chewing the fat and having a good time. What you would expect around a campfire at a hunting camp, essentially. So it's a great show. And the last one is actually the podcast that really got me into podcasting, and that is The Way I Heard It. This is a podcast from Mike Rowe. It originally started with little short stories, hence the title The Way I Heard It. He would tell stories based on historical figures, whether it be a celebrity that we know today, like a TV star or some sort of inventor or something like that. And the first 90% of the episode is very vague. The story is vague. You don't know who it is he's talking about. You start drawing conclusions. Like there was one where he talked about the King of Pop, and he did this entire story about how I think he used the name Michael. I think. Could be wrong. But anyway, he talked about how this King of Pop, was trying to hide his skin color. Well, then when you get to the end of it, you find out he's actually talking about Mozart, not Michael Jackson. It was very, very interesting. It's great. It's great. Now he's doing a little bit more long-form stuff, which is very good too. He's getting some good interviews down. He's, I think Mike Rowe is, which if you don't know who Mike Rowe is, if you ever watched Dirty Jobs, he's the host of that show, and he also does a lot of narration, stuff like the Deadliest Catch he narrated, and he narrates a ton of stuff. But it's a great show. This was the show that got me into doing podcasting for my other show, Tales of Honor, that he did one military style one on I think it was a Memorial Day, and I remember listening to it, and I said to Crystal, I'm like, this show should happen, but for Medal of Honor recipients. And that's what started it all. So it's a fantastic show. I highly recommend all three of these if you need some other listening in your life that's a little bit maybe different than what you currently consume. Maybe some difference of thought that always helps. We shouldn't be in echo chambers. We shouldn't surround ourselves only with people who think exactly like we do. We should be willing to expand our minds a little bit outside of our circle. Not saying you have to change your opinion, but you should be willing to listen to somebody else's thoughts. Take what they say, sift through it, find out what is truth, and discard the rest, because only the truth matters. And that's actually really how my change from being there was a chunk of our time where I would probably call myself either more of an independent / like center left. I was probably more center left. But then after the 2016 election, I'm like, you know what? Let me start listening. Let me listen to the other side of the aisle here. Let me hear what the other arguments are, because this is, I'm only ever hearing this one thing, and we were consuming a ton of liberal media. When I look back on it, I'm like, oh, no wonder why we thought this way. The entertainment we were watching, the news we were watching was all one side. So of course we thought that way. Let me try to expand a little bit here. Let me listen to something else. And I believe Ben Shapiro's podcast from Daily Wire was the first conservative view that I looked at. And I'm like, okay. But, the first one, I'm like, okay, I don't necessarily agree with everything, but I'll keep listening. And I kept listening. And the more and more I listened, I'm like, oh, I've been wrong on a lot of stuff. I have definitely. And so that was, Ben Shapiro was my gateway. It was my gateway podcast. So, it truly, and I'm not going to say that I was radicalized by him, but I gave myself an opportunity to listen to another way of thinking, and I was able to put two and two together, and I was able to figure out that, that's not how I want to think. I don't feel that way. Why? So it started the thought process for me, and being more logical about my thought process, and actually not just assuming things, trying to separate emotion from decision making. Speaking of decision making, on the last episode I talked about the conflict in Ukraine. How's that emotional response treating everybody now? Is that we've sent billions of dollars there? Huh? Yep, still on board. Yeah. How is that emotional process treating all y'all that voted for Biden instead of Trump? How's your pockets doing right now? How's your gas bill? How's your energy bills? How's your food bill? Starting to maybe realize that you shouldn't be using emotions for all of your decision making. It's because the only thing that matters is the truth. So that's all for this episode. Thank you all for the patience. Thank you all for coming back. If you're new, welcome. I'm going to try very hard here to not let 6 months go by for the next episode. But I did consider disbanding this podcast and maybe just doing writing instead of recording. But I think at the end of the day, a lot of people would like to listen instead of read. So we'll see. It is still time consuming for me to do all of this, but I don't want to let it slide, because it is an outlet for me, and I do enjoy doing it, and I know some people do enjoy listening. So that's all I got for this. That's it. If you have any questions, you can send them over. I'll have links in the show notes for everything that I feel is relevant for this episode, so you can go check those out. And that's it. Until next time, stay safe out there. Bye.